Chase Thomas podcast. My nephew needs me to record. See, I already hate it. I hate it.
All right, we're back here on the Chase Thomas podcast, where I'm still the aforementioned Chase Thomas, coming to you live from Knoxville, Tennessee. Everything School HQ. Joining me, we got a full house once again. It's great. Tennessee Vols Sports Guys here on a Monday night following yet another Tennessee Volunteers victory. We've got Ryan Schumpert of Rocky Top Insider. Ryan, good evening, sir. How are you?
I'm doing well. Despite the state of my professional sports teams, and I guess that's specific to Titans, but doing well. We'll see if Jack can join me in misery here if it's not looking good early for the Jags. But it would be very fitting if, of the two teams in the NFL that start season 0-3, two of them were the favorite teams of the people on this podcast, and because the other two aren't too hot either.
No, it was somber going to pick my wife and her friend up from the Morgan Wallen concert right after the Falcons lost in excruciating fashion, left to right. We go to east and west here in the Zach Robinson special. Like, just fantastic stuff. Great work all around.
Wait, hold on. Time out for a second. Did you see where Bijan said Kurt called the play?
I did see that. Yeah, I dropped that in the chat. Like, that was tough.
Tough.
It's Michael Penix's time. Like, I've seen enough. Like,
I think Cousins has played well the last 2 weeks.
I don't know. Michael Penix, he's too old. He's got to get out there. Everything I'm like, he's already aged another year. Michael Penix is already a year older since the season started.
So I'd be okay with that.
Well, that voice you hear right there. Omaha Productions, Jack Foster. Jack with the best setup. He's got the best setup of the three of us tonight. Like, he's got, I think, more stuff behind you now. Their golf balls, were those there previously? Okay.
Yeah, I think it's maybe the plate is new, but it's mostly the same. And yeah, it's good to be back. It's been a while. It's been too long. Feels like every Monday I've had something come up, so I'm glad I could hop on tonight. And it's a great time as Tennessee's riding high after a win.
They are riding high with their toughest game. Many of us have said on this podcast all summer, the sneakiest, toughest game on the calendar that many laughed at. Many laughed and mocked my Arkansas take from this summer. But who's laughing now? 3-1 Hogs fighting for
a lot of good wins.
Being ranked.
A lot of good wins in those 3 wins.
Auburn going into Auburn. Whomst among us outside of? Let me check my notes here. Who is that? Who did Auburn? Hold on, I'm pulling up. Last week they didn't have a bad loss. Not too long before that, they've had really good normal quarterback play. Let me see here. I think it's a really good win.
They lost to Cal, didn't they?
They did lose to Cal.
Auburn's terrible.
I'm doing a bit. Auburn's really bad. Auburn's maybe one of the, outside of Mississippi State, Auburn is right there in that bottom tier in the SEC. That laugh you hear also Saturday Down South, Ethan Stone. Ethan, good evening, sir. How are you?
I'm doing great. Watching some Monday Night Football, ready to talk some Vols. And going back to Ryan's point, it's really sad that the Bears might be the second best team on this of our teams on this podcast. That's pretty sad. Like, it's bad showings all around.
Whoa! Time out. Bears are not better.
The Bears defense is so good. That alone makes
the Colts were terrible yesterday, and the Bears still lost that game.
Is so good. The Bears' offense is Iowa level, but their defense is so good. No, we're so good.
I'd take Jags' offense is Iowa level too, with a bad defense. I mean, Jack and I are just two guys with bad teams, bad quarterback play, bad franchise. We're all one and the same.
Jack knows the stat, right? With the Panthers, like, you're right there. It's awful. Jack, you're in denial. Like, we're accepting it. Like, the Falcons are awful. The Bears just awful still.
Like, they're bad.
The Titans are the worst among us. You are a fan of a bad NFL team. You're a Reds fan. You should know how this works. This should be very comfortable. You transition from the end of the Red season where you fired the manager and you missed the playoffs yet again. I mean, it's an easy transition from the Red season to the Jaguar season. It's natural. It's fine. Your team's bad.
Here's the difference. And I'll lump Ethan and I in the same category. Bears defense definitely better than the Jags. Both atrocious play calling. Shane Waldron and Press Taylor are awful. Caleb is definitely worse than Trevor right now, but I'm a Caleb guy. I'm a believer. Whereas Ryan, defense got exposed by Malik Willis, who you let go yesterday. Quarterback is the worst
Ryan was
in
in the
the
building
league.
for it
There's
too. That's tough.
There's no hope with Tennessee. Whereas the Bears and the Jags could still make the playoffs, but Titans, they're terrible. I literally think the Titans
Jags
might
are
be the
dead
worst
when
in
it
the
comes to the playoffs. And at least the Titans can get rid of the quarterback they drafted in the second round. The Jags already gave, what, $200 million
You
to
do
that
realize
bum?
Trevor Lawrence is the new age Phillip Rivers. Like, he is really good. I can't help it. He doesn't have an O-line, receivers who can catch, a good OC, and defense terrible. Like, everything around him is just cancer, but he's great.
Yep,
Chicago made a big mistake where they just didn't clean house when they drafted Caleb Williams. Like, it should have been a whole new staff. Like, running it back with Eberflus is just that, and Shane Waldron, that combo.
Well, Waldron came over.
Absolutely ridiculous. Like people are, and like I'll get off my soapbox about the Bears, but people are like hounding Caleb and being like, "You threw it 52 times." Yeah, because we cannot run the ball. There is not a single player on this team that can run the ball, so he had to throw it 52 times. He has to. Because DeAndre Swift is our running back one, even though he's a pass-catching running back. We refuse to play our best running back. Shane Waldron he's a football terrorist. He is.
I agree. He's not good.
He's a terrorist, man.
You know what I knew too was just the Falcons just so much expectation with the hype of like, well, they'll obviously win the NFC South. I'm like, they haven't had a winning season in 5 years. What are we talking about? There was just too much. It made me uneasy. Just all the money they spend. You bring in Justin Simmons. Bates is awesome. You get Matthew Judon. That was cool. Then the offensive line gets destroyed last night, and Kirk's just cooked. And you're like, oh, great. This is
Chase.
It's
Falcons
over.
are still the best team in this group. Yeah.
No, the Bucs are winning this division. It's already over. Like the Bucs are winning this division again. They keep doing it.
They just got beat down by Denver at home.
Baker's gonna do it. He's the best quarterback in this division.
I would pick the Bucs to probably win the division still, but the Falcons are solid. They just beat the Eagles and should have beat the Chiefs.
The Eagles are terrible too. The Eagles should have lost yesterday. The Eagles are not a good football team at all either. They should be 0-3.
But this is the National Football League.
Yeah.
Like most teams, you feel that way about.
The Falcons will be fine.
I can't
Falcons
do this.
will be fine.
I'm not allowing any of you guys to do this. That was an awful experience last night. I'm not.
Imagine if Chase was a Titans fan, how just awful he would be.
Oh my
God. Chase loses at home and plays pretty good against the Chiefs and complains. I sat in 95-degree heat. That was very dramatic. In my Titans bucket hat, which was awesome. Great giveaway. Shout out. The franchise did one thing right. As my beloved and historic Nissan Stadium was 75% fans, and Malik Willis, who couldn't complete a forward pass in 2 years for the Titans, terrorized us. Like the Will Levis terrible interception, you get it every game. I was expecting it. You know Will Levis is going to hand the other team 7 points at some point. You just got to overcome it. The offensive line is terrible. We know this. Malik Willis terrorizing us. It was enough to break a man. It really was.
I mean, just to add on to that, the Bears didn't score an offensive touchdown, and we still beat the Titans.
Ooh.
Yeah. True. So credit to the Titans. They didn't have a punt blocked yesterday.
Well, the Steelers also beat the Falcons without scoring an offensive touchdown that week, Ethan.
It's true.
A lot of field goals. That was another fun one. This Falcons team has been awful. Like, awful. I've hated every game. Like, it's that whole meme where I hate you. I'll see you next week. Like, it's just, I hate this team, and I'll be back ready to go next week as well. But thankfully, we have the Tennessee Volunteers, who do not give us any of these feelings because Tennessee just keeps winning. Nico Iamaleava is now 5-0 as a starter. Takes care of business on the road in Norman. All four of the panelists here on today's program didn't waver throughout the week on how things were going to ultimately unfold for the Vols in Norman. Many forget that was indeed the case, but the confidence never wavered throughout the weekend going into the kickoff on Saturday night, which is important because that is how that all went down, and I wanted to be as completely forthright in that regard before we dive into any Tennessee-Oklahoma fallout. Jack, your most important development from Tennessee in this game coming out of it is what for you?
It's that the offense can be largely stagnant and pretty below average for the entirety of a night. Outside of a couple drives, Tennessee's offense wasn't good. And Tennessee can still dominate a good team in a tough environment. That was the story of the game, what I just said, but it's true. This defense is just so elite. It is one of the best in the nation. I think it may end up being the best in the nation as we go along in the college football season, and they get more great performances under their belt against offenses that are respected by college football media and by all the talking heads for sure. It feels like the response from this Tennessee Oklahoma game is that Oklahoma's offense is just really bad and Jackson Arnold isn't it. And now NC State's really fallen apart. So of course that's the response from that game. Whereas really it's just more so that Tennessee's defense is that lights out. It's that complete. Jermod McCoy is a dog. This defensive line is even better than I think we expected. It is played so well. Keenan Pili, what a start to the season he's having. The young linebackers making an impact. This defense is going to keep them in every game. I don't think that Tennessee is going to lose by 2 scores in any game they play if they do lose a game. And I mean, undefeated's on the table for me now in the regular season because of this defense. Nico's only going to get better. It's a really dang good football team Tennessee's got, and it's headlined by their defense when I feel like you think of Josh Heupel in Tennessee, 5-star quarterback, you think it's the offense. No, this defense is why this team can win a national championship this season.
So you're there with Georgia, even on the road in Athens. You're still feeling pretty good about that.
Oh, I'm not saying I'm feeling good. I think it'll be competitive. I'm not saying Georgia just a 100% is going to win, though. I would still pick them. But I do think
But it doesn't really matter now because
can be
Tennessee
more
took care of
competitive
business.
against Georgia than they have in the past.
And that was what we talked about, right? Like going into this season, Ryan, was that, look, Georgia, you don't want to be in a position to make the CFP and you need to beat Georgia to make the CFP. You don't want to be in that spot in mid-November going to Athens. And as long as Tennessee takes care of business against Arkansas on next Saturday, they're going to be in the driver's seat with so many home games coming up, conference games. We know how good Heupel and this team is at home, that the Georgia game, I don't want to say it doesn't mean anything, but it also might be in the Vols' best interest to not play their best game against Georgia, because I think the SEC title game is now something you want to avoid going forward, just because it's something, if you lose, you're going to lose some momentum, you're going to get banged up, and then you have to immediately play another top 15 team right after, and you're playing the best of the best in the SEC. Like, I don't think it actually serves any purpose. It's different than baseball and basketball, where you can immediately bounce back. In baseball, obviously ran the gauntlet there, and Tennessee basketball's done something similar. I think it's different in football, where I think you want to avoid that. I'd rather have 2 weeks off to prepare for your playoff game than play in the SEC title game. I think there's going to be a lot of gamesmanship. Like, if you're Georgia, it doesn't really matter. You'll play, like, you'll be fine. But I think if you're Tennessee, like, I think I don't know how it's going to unfold. We're still several months from that, but I think it might be more advantageous for Tennessee to not make the SEC title game. I mean, that I know that's kind of getting ahead of ourselves here, but I don't know. That's something that I don't think should be like, oh, we got to make that, like, it's going to be fun. We want to make the SEC title game. But Ryan, you seem to disagree on this take.
Yeah, well, I mean, first of all, you still have 2 weeks off even if you play that game before the first round of the playoffs. So it's not like you got to turn around and play the next week. And you're just completely selling on the possibility of winning the game when you say that. Because if you win the game and you have a bye, that's 100% such an advantage. And, you know, and this is also very circumstantial. I think there's a world where not being in that game as opposed to being in that game, what that difference would make would be the difference of having a home game in the first round of the playoff as opposed to going on the road. So the banged up aspect I can see a little bit, but I just don't have that same feeling. It definitely means less. It's not the same alert to get into the game, but by no means is it something that you want to avoid. And honestly, I don't really get to me, baseball and basketball are more that way, especially baseball. You see teams all the time struggle in Hoover and then make big runs. And basketball, I don't know if it really there's any sort of direct there's just no correlation to me in basketball either way. So, I mean, I don't just feel like you have to get there, but I don't really see there being much of an advantage to not making it as opposed to being there and losing. When if you get there and win, there's a massive advantage.
That's fair. Ethan, your most important development for Tennessee in this game coming out of it is what?
Yeah, everything Jack said was spot on for me. I'll put emphasis on being able to win on the road. I mean, obviously, people came in to that game's. I mean, the trolls and the losers of the internet saying, "Oh, Heupel can't win on the road," all that stuff. And you go and you beat look, Oklahoma struggled against some bad teams earlier this year, but that defense is for real, and that environment is for real as well. Even though, their field probably could take a step up a notch, but the environment right there, it's big. Tennessee to go in there and look. They won by 10 points, but I said it after the game. That was as dominant of a 10-point victory as you can get, especially how conservative Tennessee was playing, especially in the second half. Luke missing both of your starting tackles. It's just massive. You go in there and people that weren't watching the game are going to look at the box score and see the 25-15 and say, okay, Oklahoma struggled with teams already this year. To put up that defensive performance, to, like Jack said, not really play very well on offense even before Tennessee got a little more conservative in the second half. That shows so much. That shows so much because you've got to go to Athens later. If Tennessee can't get one of the first 4 byes going into the playoff, assuming they do make the playoff, gonna have to play possibly on the road there too. So it's very important. And Tennessee looked stout. They looked like they didn't take a step back. They didn't look nervous. I mean, obviously there were some special circumstances this time around with Heupel's return to Norman, but I can't overstate how massive that is for Tennessee to look the way they did in such a massive game at night, huge environment.
Yeah. Ryan, you got a stat here?
I have stats. Craziest stat of the game. Into the first quarter, through one quarter, Oklahoma had 102 yards of offense. Guess how many yards of offense they had combined in the second and third quarter?
Well, we know the fourth they got Hawkins had some. I'm going to say like 50.
I'd say lower than that, or 20. I mean, it wasn't a lot.
So hold up, 102 at end of 3. How many did they have in the second and third combined? That's your question?
They had 102 at the end of the first quarter, and the question is how many do you think they had in the second and third combined?
Yeah, I'll say 60.
Your winner is Ethan. The answer, -4 yards.
Wow.
Oh,
that's unbelievable.
Oklahoma went into the fourth quarter with 98 yards of offense. Now, granted, there was the fumble on the backwards lateral where they lost like 30 yards of offense on that play, technically, the way that gets statted. But y'all hit the nail on the head with defense. I mean, Oklahoma's offense, it was essentially, besides 2 drives, when the game was basically decided, and one big play when the turf monster got Christian Harrison, that it was basically the same thing as the NC State game, where Oklahoma just could do nothing on offense.
Well, it's one of those chicken and the egg things, too, which I think Tennessee skeptics continue to throw out of like, oh, well, that Oklahoma offense isn't good, or that NC State offense isn't good. It's like, hey, part of it is like it's good company to be only with Georgia in terms of not giving up a defensive touchdown in a certain amount of quarters. Like I think there's something to it because even every other elite program still giving up some. They're still giving up some scores. Tennessee's just not. Like, I mean, that fumble at the goal line was wild right after that play, and Jackson Arnold fumbling and Tennessee getting the ball back. Like, they had some fortunate turnover luck, but I mean, they had to earn, the flip by Hawkins in the fourth quarter, and he's short, and then they don't get on the next play, and you're like, I don't know if they're going to get in again. Like, that's where Tennessee is that they're on the half-inch yard line, and I'm like, I don't know if Oklahoma's going to get in here. And they had to burn another minute off the clock just to score. And, I mean, I think the defense is honestly still not getting enough credit nationally because people are still continuing to throw out the offenses they're playing. It's like, they're making these offenses look this inept. They listen to the coaches after these games. They're just like, yeah, that was awful. I don't know what to do there. Like, that defensive front is just overwhelming. And like Keenan Peely and Aaron Carter made the leap. Like, there's so many reasons as to why Tennessee's defense is for real and suffocating and giving these offenses these problems. But I think it's one of those where people have got to stop looking at just who they're playing and just look at how this defense is playing. Because it clearly travels. It's going to play at home, obviously. But this defense isn't going anywhere, and it's only going to get better.
Yeah. Can I say something quickly about Jackson Arnold? It feels like that, so much was, oh, Jackson Arnold is just terrible. He can't do anything. Tennessee made it to where Jackson Arnold couldn't do anything. Oklahoma couldn't run the ball at all. Had no run help. Tennessee is dominating Oklahoma's offensive line, so didn't have a lot of time. By the way, receiving core was banged up for Jackson Arnold too. Deion Burks gets hurt early. Nick Anderson leaves. So I mean, he didn't have a lot of help at all. I felt bad for him a little bit. And yeah, he didn't play well at all, but it was really Tennessee's defense making it like that. It wasn't Jackson Arnold just being awful. It was Tennessee's defense making life really tough on him and having him play one of his worst games. And I also thought it was a bad decision to bench him because I don't see how if you're Oklahoma, you can say we can come back with the backup they had. It just wasn't conducive to a comeback. You needed that gunslinger in there, in my opinion.
Michael Hawkins, they just announced starting quarterback this week.
Yeah,
Auburn.
it's over. Yeah, that one's.
I was honestly a little surprised by that as well, Jack. I thought Jackson Arnold was not half bad in the moments that I watched before the Tennessee game, but he was. I mean, Tennessee they made him look awful, and even with everything that you just said, correct. That's just wild to make him look like that. I mean, he looked terrible. I think it was like 50 yards passing. I mean, granted, he only played a couple quarters, but still.
Yeah, and the lateral too. I mean, if you're the receiver, you got to get up. You stand by the sideline. The play call and the Arnold run, which he fumbled on, was bad. So he wasn't getting hardly any help. But yeah, he didn't play well, so I get it.
I also just think in this era, like, it's just bold, man. Like, you got to be sure if you're gonna do something like that, because it's over. Like, he's gone. Like, he's transferring. Like, you got to be sure when you pull the plug, because back and forth, like back years ago, you could do this and be like, well, he'll work through it and never say never. And if he goes somewhere else or even in the conference, he has to sit out a year. So maybe, like, you just don't know. Like, there's still reason for that he might stay. You make this move now, man. I don't know how you go back to him. And I think at that point, like, where's Jackson Arnold going to be playing quarterback next year? Because I don't think it's going to be Oklahoma. Is it Hawkins' legacy? Isn't his dad a former Oklahoma player?
I think they said that on the broadcast. His dad played receiver at Oklahoma.
So I don't know. I mean, he has some juice. Yeah. And the running quarterback, that kind of style has done really well at Oklahoma in recent years. So I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah, I just think the way he runs, that there's just, I mean, it's what Jack said. That offense is just bad, like, around him. Not that Jackson Arnold played well. There's nothing around him.
Well, you need somebody like him in this offense because there's nobody to throw to. So you need someone who can make something out of nothing.
Exactly.
And Arnold
and the offensive line's
like
bad. So I think you just need someone that can create a little bit, and that to win games this year. That's probably their best bet.
That Auburn game's gonna be ugly on Saturday. Oklahoma, Auburn, hard pass.
Bet the under.
Yeah,
Jackson Arnold, Auburn starting quarterback next season potentially.
Ooh. It should be Walker White, top 5 quarterback in the class. Like, he should be the guy. Like, shouldn't
Think
it be
either
Walker?
coach is at danger of losing their job?
Wait, say it again.
Think either coach is at danger of losing their job legitimately?
Not this year. I don't think.
Really.
Still too early.
If there was the one thing I will say, like, I mean, it feels like Auburn's been building the next year. But if just, I mean, as Hugh Freeze throws his quarterbacks under the bus, it's just like Hugh. You feel for him because there was just no way to know that the walk-on quarterback and the guy and Peyton Thorne weren't going to be good. Like, we didn't have any tape of Peyton Thorne. Mm-hmm. We hadn't seen him for a year in the Big Ten or a year in the SEC. We hadn't seen him in that system before. So you thought he might be good. And then the Brown kid, a low 3-star walk-on. I mean, a lot of people were going after him. That was a guy in Josh Heupel's state that Josh Heupel looked at and said, this kid can be something special. I'm not sure Josh Heupel looked at him twice. I mean, quarterback play is terrible, but it's like, this was so predictable.
Well, it was a flex where he thought, I think he could go bowling with Thorne, right? He could get to 6-6, 7-5, and then they're going to be loaded and ready to go next year. Auburn's not going to a bowl game, folks. I don't know if you've looked at Auburn's schedule. It's brutal. Auburn's going like 3-9, 4-8. Like, Auburn, they're cooked. They gave away some gimmies here out of the gate.
Did you see what Freeze said about Pittman and Arkansas, like, not an hour ago?
No.
He, I cannot believe this is a real quote. I had to check to make sure before. It was right before we got on. And he said, I love Sam Pittman, but and I want him to win the rest of their games. If we played them 9 more times, we would win every single time. He actually said
you
that.
Can't say that after a loss.
You'd probably lose about 8 of them. You'd maybe win 1.
You had 5 turnovers, man. Like, what are we doing?
I don't get it.
They've had, 10 in the last 2 games, right?
It's so something bonkers like that.
Or I know they had 5 against Cal. Was that 2 weeks ago?
They had 5 against Arkansas yesterday. They had 5 on Saturday.
Right, so they had 5 against each is what I'm trying to say. 4 picks in each.
Yeah. And in the portal era, like, you could have gotten Taylor Green, the Arkansas quarterback. I mean, he was out there. He's really good for Arkansas. He might save Sam Pittman's job this year.
Better
Taylor
than
Green.
Nico, Chase said.
I mean, hold on. I said Taylor Green and Bobby Petrino were going to be good together. And that was
better than Nico and Heupel. You said that.
Hold on. That's not what I said. We're not doing this. Jack, you're not flipping this on me. This is my bit. When you're not here, is I get to do this for a solid minute and a half with you not here to defend yourself on these takes that you very much drop in the group chat throughout the week. But on the program, on here with me, on this call, you on this call, we can't do it. We can't besmirch the good name of the Chase Thomas podcast with those lies that
Jack, we need to start doing the bit on the RTI press pass. That we just say, unlike our good friend Chase Thomas over at Chase Thomas podcast, who believes this, and this.
Ryan, how many times have on the RTI podcast you and I have done, like, we've brought up takes, like some people are saying blank and it'll literally just be Chase's take, and then we'll proceed to bash that take and disprove it
many times.
Wow.
I do it all the time. I did it with Arkansas. I've done it at least half a dozen times.
They don't call me Strawman Thomas for nothing. Oh my God. I'm just a batter. I'm a warm up for you guys. I'm giving you content.
Chase did not think Lance Hurd being out made like a 20-point difference in this game.
No.
No, he did.
And after the first two drives in which Tennessee got across midfield and then Oklahoma's punt, what did he say? He said could not have a worse start or disastrous start.
After three and out, it was disastrous start. After the turnover rundowns for Oklahoma, Tennessee 3 and out and punting on 4th and 2. Disastrous start was the.
I was saying disastrous start for Oklahoma. I'd never felt better. Like, I had never felt better about where Tennessee was in that point in the game. Never felt better.
What a spin zone.
Never felt better. Stock up, stock down.
Because Brian Thomas Jr. is too short, by the way. Since we're spin zoning things, that's what happened.
Okay. I don't know what I've never felt better. It was great. Stock up, stock down. Who you got coming out of this game, Jack Foster?
Yeah. I'll say stock up. Deshaun Bishop is the one I keep going back to just because he's looked really good. He's bona fide top 2 running back on this team. And I do think he's going to get a lot of work this season in important moments. He got a lot of significant run in this game when the game was still close early. He can pass block really well, and he's not as fast as Simpson. He's not as shifty, but I do think he will be an important part of this offense moving forward. So I'm curious to hear you guys' thoughts on that running back situation. By the way, Ryan, what did you think was going on with Dylan Sampson there in the early part of the game?
I wasn't really sure, to be honest. I thought just more rotation, I guess, but I definitely found it bizarre how long he was out there. It was like the second quarter, I want to say, or maybe late first quarter into the second quarter, but I didn't really feel like I had much of a read on it.
And then stock down, I'll just say tackle depth, just because the loss of Lance Hurd was really noticed watching the game. And
Larry Johnson was good, though. He graded out as the best offensive lineman for Tennessee, right, in this game?
Yes.
Yeah, I didn't feel like Dane Davis had a good game.
No.
From what I was watching.
Yeah, I don't think Dane had a good game.
To specify, I'll say Dane Davis. He got blown by a couple of times. And John Campbell just cannot stay healthy, play a full game. You've said that multiple times, Chase. So I am worried a little bit.
He still hasn't hit 40 snaps, right? Like, how many snaps did he have in this game? 30? Did he get 30?
It was in that ballpark. Let me go find it.
I mean, I just think at this point, Jack, we have to just look at it as like John Campbell, it's rotation now. Like, I don't think we're at a point where you can bet on John Campbell playing a full game at this point. Like, it might just not be possible.
I agree. And Dane Davis can't play well. And I mean, Larry Johnson, yeah, like you said, had a good game, but I am legitimately concerned about the offensive tackle position for Tennessee.
And we'll get into that.
Whatever happens with Lance Hurd, but we'll see.
I mean, yeah, 2 weeks off. You hope. I mean, 2 weeks from now will be a big thing for Tennessee, is how they use these 2 weeks to get healthy, to get some guys ready. Like, do we see more guys? Does Bennett Warren pop in? Does Jesse Perry pop in? I'm curious if it opens up a little bit more in these 2 weeks off to kind of, now that you've seen kind of where you're at with Campbell, what it's like without Lance Hurd for a full game. I don't know. I am very curious how Glenn Ellerby and the staff handles tackle going forward, because, I mean, you hope the Lance Hurd stuff doesn't linger, because we'll save that for a second, because that is something that I think has Vols fans most fired up or concerned here going into the bye week, is just, can you protect Nico enough? Because that's why they went into a shell a little bit, is they didn't. Part of it was the game and the flow of the game in Tennessee didn't have to do a bunch of downfield shots and being aggressive on offense to win that football game. The part of it was like they just couldn't hold up in pass pro. So it was just, there's like Nico got strip sacked twice and getting hit, and these unnecessary hits are just not necessary to win football games, because of how good this defense is and where Tennessee's at offensively, that they've been able to run the ball so well that they just have not had to do that. But it is something to monitor for the rest of the season. I don't think it's going away. I think that's a storyline that's not going anywhere. I think people are going to wonder about the tackles and if they're going to be able to hold up.
When I think about how a game can go just really wrong for Tennessee against Alabama or Georgia,
yeah,
there's no way this defense is getting cooked, like I said earlier. So it's Nico having a bad game, and it's because of the offensive line. It's because of pressure.
Yeah,
that's how Tennessee has a disastrous game, is just can't score.
And they don't have time to, they don't even have time to let anything get downfield. So everything's quick, everything's side to side, everything is safe and conservative, and it's driving fans mad. It's like, well, also it's like, we can't do it. Like, yeah, we'd love to go down and take some more downfield shots to Dante or Brazel, and we can't. Like, they don't have time to develop because of where the offensive line's at. But hopefully that gets remedied, and guys get healthy over the next 2 weeks, because Tennessee just needs Hurd and Campbell. If we're going to talk national championship, we're going to talk 16, 17 games, the tackle position is going to be looming large over that going forward. But Ryan, stock up, stock down. Who do you got?
Yeah, John Campbell, 34 snaps, by the way. So he did get over the 30 threshold. Second most snaps he's played this season, behind 37 in Chattanooga. So that tells you how little he's been out there.
Yeah.
Stock up. Deshaun Bishop was the one I liked a lot. I'll go with defensive backs, and Jermon McCoy being one of them. Again, we felt like he was good, but just another game where he was fantastic. I mean, everybody will probably talk about the interception. I thought the best play he made all night was on the first drive on that fourth down when he timed that ball up perfectly and knocked it out. And then I'll say Jacoby Thomas, too, a guy that I was a bit of a hater on going into the season, that I just didn't see it. Not that he's some superstar, but he's through 4 games, looks extremely serviceable out there, and certainly plays with a presence the way he hits. So I'll say stock up on those two guys with the secondary as a whole, and I'll say stock down on a little bit receiver room as a whole, but I'll say Chris Brazell especially or in particular. You know, that was always my big question with the receivers, is someone step up and become a number one guy, and it felt like if someone was going to do that, it was probably going to be Chris Brazell. He kind of no-showed in this game. He kind of almost forgot about him. I think they threw one to him on like the first or second drive, a screen pass that didn't go anywhere, and I'm not sure they hardly threw him the ball the rest of the game. So I just don't know how much. The only receiver Tennessee has that I think worries defenses is Dante Thornton, and he just doesn't seem like a consistent enough right now to think that he's going to be some sort of stud. I think Brew McCoy, if anybody would be stock up in that room, it'd be Brew McCoy. He had a nice night. To me, he seems like he's probably Nico's safety blanket, and just a lot of slightly above average players to me in that room, and not a lot of elite guys that defenses fear.
Can I speak on this real quick?
Mm-hmm.
Nico only threw 21 times. So, I mean, they weren't going to throw the ball a lot in the second half. You know, I think in more competitive games, maybe Brazell gets more. I agree. It does feel like he's leaning on the other guy. And Dante Thornton, it's like he has so many plays drawn up for him that he's not going to play as much snaps as the other. But when he comes in, it's like, watch out. And he looks so good on the field. My God. But yes, it does feel like Brazell is the most stocked down of the receivers. But I didn't have a lot of takeaways with the passing game with this game, just because 21 pass attempts, didn't have to throw the ball. They were running it all the time.
Yeah, and there's certainly an element of that. I mean, that's completely fair, but it's just that's been the case for 4 games now. So it's, you know, you're a quarter of the way or a third of the way into the season, and you kind of want to me, this felt like the best real look at the passing game we've seen. You're right. Arkansas will be really interesting in a few weeks because I think that's a game they'll be able to throw the ball a lot in. And probably
their DC just got SEC Defensive Coordinator of the Week. He shared it with Tim Banks, I think.
I don't think they
That's
have.
a thing?
weekly
It was on Twitter.
awards for
I don't know. I saw it. Maybe it was
coordinators.
that SEC podcast or something. I don't know. I saw it at rankings where they do all these SEC players of the week, coach of the week, and all that. But he
Yeah,
got
it's
it
probably
on there
some
with.
show award. Yeah.
He forced 5 turnovers against Auburn this week.
He did. It's true. Which
He
again,
made
we
it
talked
happen.
about the quarterback play at Auburn, really good. It's tough to confuse those guys. Tough to get those guys to make mistakes.
I think I'm not panicking about the receivers because I still think they're just so deep, Ethan, that the issue is not that it's just no one's emerged. I think that's the main thing is that you have this talent and you've rotated a bit. Brazel had the big 50-yard touchdown catch last week against Kent State. Dante, 8 catches, 3 touchdowns. He actually had 2 big plays. One of them was taken away because of a penalty in this game. So Dante actually had 2 really good plays for Tennessee in this one. But if he's your 4th guy, I think he's exactly what you need. Like, that's great. Like, if Dante is able to, but if you're asking him to be your main guy, then yeah, Tennessee's got problems at receiver again this year. But I don't know. I'm not ready to jump out. I think Brew's better than he's been to this point. I think he's more dynamic. Like he looked good in this game.
Yeah.
He does a lot of stuff, blocking and everything else. Like Brew's solid. He's good. I mean, Squirrel has not jumped out to a big start through 4 weeks. The slot
He is what he
position,
is.
you really haven't gotten much because Chaz Nimrod has not come on in the slot. I don't know. I just wonder. We didn't see much Mike Matthews, and we kind of wonder going into the week is Mike Matthews going to fit? Like, it's a big spot for him as a true freshman, but you're seeing Jeremiah Smith and you're seeing Ryan Wingo and you're seeing some 5-star freshman
Ryan
receivers.
Williams.
Yeah, they're playing. So I think that's the one I have circled, and it's not just because we're in the same high school, but Mike. I think Mike's the most talented receiver on this roster, and I think you're gonna have to play him at some point, and I think we're gonna see more Mike as the season goes on, and that's the one I'd still circle. And I would not. Everyone who's freaking about Chris, I'm not there yet with Brazel. I think there's still some more opportunity there, but I don't know, Ethan. I'm not hitting the panic meter just yet. Are you?
I'm personally not either, and I think I'm probably higher on Dante Thornton than anybody here. I just maybe it's just specifically because that absolute laser that was to Thornton, right? It was.
Yeah.
The absolute laser from Nico, that was as fast as I've seen a Tennessee receiver move since like Josh Malone, Florida.
He looks
like
awesome.
way
That was
back.
the play I thought was the same
He was
vibes. The
moving.
throw where you put it in stride, they score a touchdown. If it's just a solid throw, he gets tackled for a first down.
He was moving, and also, I mean, I don't know if you guys see alternate angles on this. It really wasn't the easiest catch either because Nico rocketed it. I mean, he absolutely laid it out. And I mean, that was just a beautiful play. I can't stop watching that play. So maybe it's just that, and just seeing that, I'm like, Dante Thornton is him. He's going to be the guy. I mean, I'm not really necessarily scared about the wide receiver room. I would agree with Jack's point. I haven't really seen Tennessee need to throw the ball to beat anybody yet. The run game has been so good. Dylan Sampson was dominant until this week, and Deshaun Bishop and him both came in and ran pretty well against a very good Oklahoma defensive line. I'm just not really sure Tennessee has needed to pass the ball efficiently enough, enough to get a number one receiver to even come out. I mean, in just about every single game, Brew had that. In this last one alone, his yard after catch one, he kind of looked like Jawan Jennings, moving people around. I personally, I actually would say the entire receiver room. I like it. I like what I'm seeing from them. I'm not sure they're going to be elite. There's going to be a Jeremiah Smith, Ryan Williams guy in there, but I'm liking what I'm seeing from them so far.
Yeah, and let's just see. Let's get him home. That's another thing. Is just I think Tennessee in 2022 with Hyatt, Bama at home, Ramel Keaton, and Brew McCoy went off against Florida at home. I want to see what it looks like because we're going to see some big plays from these receivers at home. Is my guess.
Yeah.
Dante at home to kick off the year. On the road's different kind of beast, and the main thing is getting a win. But I'm not there in that regard. Ryan, Vols CFP odds moved to 80% on ESPN following this victory. Does it feel like it's that certain for you now that Tennessee is going to make the college football playoff based on these first 4 weeks?
Yeah, no, it does. To me, it feels like about 90% chance that they're at least going to go 10-2. And I'll throw another 10% chance in there for something wonky happening and them going 10-2 and not making it. So to me, that completely checks out. I think 80% is probably right in that right ballpark. Arkansas game's the only game outside of Georgia and Alabama I can see them losing, and I'd still be very, very surprised if that happened.
It also helps that Mizzou does not look like a real contender at all. They're playing with their food. They've struggled the last couple of weeks.
But their schedule's so easy. I think they're going to be able to win a lot of games.
But I don't think they have a margin for error. Like, we're just waiting. Like, you dropped the Vanderbilt game, it's over for Mizzou. Like, even if they still went 10-2, I just don't think they have the kind of schedule to really have a whole lot of wiggle room. Jack, is like, you look at Tennessee's schedule, you win at Oklahoma. I think that's still going to be a good win at the end. NC State's not as big as it looked at the time, but Florida, you should have that. Bama, I think you'll be favored against Bama by the time they get here, is my guess. And if you play Georgia close, like, I think a 10-2 Tennessee, it's just going to be impossible to keep them out of. And I think the committee's going to like Tennessee with the defense, with Nico. Like, we can pretend the narrative doesn't matter. The narrative matters. And Nico's going to be a Heisman finalist, and Tennessee is rocking 4th best Heisman odds right now. I think Nico's going to find his way. I'm just going to go ahead and say on September 23rd, Nico is going to be a Heisman finalist in New York.
How about this? Better chance Tennessee plays in the national championship game than Nico goes to New York.
Oh, no. I'm taking Nico goes to New York. There's too many variables. It's a lot of games to win.
Dude.
Only 20 more sacks for James Pierce, by the way.
Oh, yeah. He's making progress.
I feel responsible I feel personally responsible that James Pierce, who's been really good through 4 weeks, he just hasn't gotten, like, he was great in the Oklahoma game.
Chase? It's not that easy, man, especially when a defensive line is this deep. Like, it made sense that Pierce would regress a little bit.
He hasn't regressed, though. It's just he's not. I feel like the snaps are
on
different.
On the stat sheet. Regress.
Yeah.
Not as play. Yeah. If Tennessee doesn't make the playoff, it's a disappointment.
What a stray from Ryan there. That was out of left field. That was very unnecessary.
Yeah. If Tennessee doesn't make the playoff, it's a disappointment, I think.
It feels like that now, right? Fans are just like,
huge disappointment.
Like, I think before the year they would have been like 9-3, 10-2, just missed. Like, okay, and then we get Nico back for one more year, we'll be ready. I think now the hype's just too strong. Like, I think if you fall a little bit, like you drop Florida, I mean, you talk about this version of Florida. I don't think that's in the cards, but again, it goes back to, like, I just look at the schedule and what Tennessee's done to this point. As long as they take care of business against Arkansas and how good they are at home, Ethan, I don't see a scenario where they don't make it. They don't make the college football playoff at this point. I don't want to get ahead of our skis here, but it feels like that here in late September that they're going to be a playoff team.
Yeah, short of losing to Arkansas, God forbid Vandy, but they're not going to. But
Vandy, I genuinely do think is the next hardest game.
I absolutely agree. I think it's number 4 behind Georgia, Bama, and Arkansas.
Well, it's because they're basically running the triple. They're doing some fun stuff on offense that you can't really prepare for, and it's really annoying. Vanderbilt's offense, Diego Pavia is good. Like, that's going to be one of the best quarterbacks they play this year.
He's legitimately good, and it feels like Vanderbilt always, it's a rivalry game. They're always going to bring it. It's in Nashville, but that's negligible because it's Memorial Day.
There'll only be 40,000 Tennessee fans there instead of 100.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a 60,000 difference in how many Tennessee fans will be there.
I would agree with Ryan. I mean, I think Tennessee's going to win that game. I'm not going to go and say that have a hot take and say Vandy's going to win it. I do think they could absolutely keep it competitive. They're not half bad this year. I think they're going to go bowling, by the way. But
I don't know. If you look at that schedule, that Vandy schedule still.
I think they could do it. I mean, I really
Georgia
they're going to need some upsets.
Real bad for them.
Yeah.
The Georgia State loss.
If they beat Georgia State, I'd be with you.
Vandy has to do that. They have to lose to a team that's just completely ridiculous. But to answer your question, Chase, no, I'm with everyone else here. I mean, you keep it competitive with Alabama and Georgia. Don't get absolutely blown out. Just for the narrative alone, just because the Tennessee being good again is good for college football. They'll be number 12, number 11 if it comes push to shove, if they're 10-2.
And if you're a Tennessee fan right now, like, the best part of all of this to me through 4 games is the defense is the story and the running game is the story. The guy you thought was going to be the story, Nico Iamaleava, has been good. He hasn't had to be great. He hasn't had to be Hendon Hooker in 2022. He hasn't had to carry this Tennessee offense the way Hendon Hooker had to carry that Tennessee team in 2022. He is able to ease into just being the guy at Tennessee. Like, he's only had 5 starts. The first one, obviously, basically a glorified exhibition against Iowa. I mean, he's going to get better. Nico has not even come close to his best performance that we're going to see, I think, this season. Like, I'm very, very excited to see Nico at home in these big games against Florida and Alabama. I think he's going to put Mississippi State's awful. Like, he's going to put up some bonkers numbers against Mississippi State. Like, the Mississippi State game in November is going to be a lot like Mizzou, Tennessee from 2022. That Thanksgiving type that week where Tennessee is just like they could drop 90 if they want to, and they throw it 60 yards downfield late. It's Jake Merklinger just dancing on Miss State. I don't know, because Lebby and Heupel are cool, so maybe that's just not how that goes. But either way, Tennessee, I think if you're a Vol fan, you've just waited for this defense, because no matter what, it's just cool to have an elite defense that travels, because offense can be tricky week over week, because I mean obviously Tennessee was stifled in Athens 2 years ago offensively. But this defense is going to travel. This defense is going to travel to Georgia. This defense is going to travel against Alabama. This defense is going to travel week over week. And when you have this kind of depth and this kind of fun defense that's just as physical and nasty and good as Tennessee's is, you just haven't seen it in so long. It's just fun because you're going to be in every game. Tennessee is going to be in every game because their front seven is that good. And not many teams around the country have that. It's Georgia. It's Nick Saban's Alabama. It's just rare to have this much depth and to be this dominant in your front seven. And I think that's the best part of this, because you still have a quarterback who's growing into being a franchise Heisman type quarterback, and he's not having to do it all because he has a defense and a running game that makes his life a lot easier, which is great for a young quarterback. Final thing here, fellas.
Got one very quick thing on that. Jason Jenkins playing 5 snaps and recording a safety is the perfect example of Tennessee's defensive line and just the fulfillment of the Rodney Gardner plan.
Well, I wrote about that in the Stock Up report here at TBL Tennessee today. It was just that like Jackson Moy and Jason Jenkins played a combined 20 snaps, and they had, let's see here, let me pull it back up. Like, it's crazy. They had a combined, because Jenkins played 5.
3 tackles for loss, maybe.
Yeah, 3 tackles for loss, safety. They were all over the place, and they stood out. Like, I remember Moy and Jenkins on the field in their limited amount of time. It's crazy. Like, yeah, Moy had a sack and a TFL and 15 defensive snaps. Jenkins had a sack, 1.5 tackles for loss, and the safety, and his 5 defensive snaps. Like, just crazy. Like, that's just how good and how deep this Tennessee team is. It's 20 snaps for these two guys, and they were dominant, and you felt Oklahoma felt every one of those 20 snaps that Jenkins and Moy were in. Final thing here, and we'll wrap up here tonight, fellas. We've kind of mentioned this a little bit at the top, but I think I want to poll you guys and get y'all's feeling on this right now. Worry meter out of 10 for the tackle spot the rest of the year, because that's what I have circled in terms of what could be ultimately the difference. We should always throw Cooper in there. Cooper's been healthy and good through these first 4 weeks, but you kind of know where that is. And I'm high on Satterwhite after this year, but he's still a true freshman. You don't want to be in a spot where you have to go to Satterwhite this year. But I mean, the tackle spot, it's looming. the BVS for so many Vol fans is looming in that regard. It's just, Bennett Warren could be a guy. Jesse Parrott can be a guy. You have David Sanders coming in next year. You have Douglas Utu maybe still coming in. We'll see what that flip watch looks like. But I mean, you have a lot of guys in the pipeline who are figured to be guys here, but you're kind of seeing when you don't get Jordan Seaton this past cycle and you're down to the butt and you're just kind of in that, all right, we're fine if we're healthy. And you're seeing it's just the margin of error and the margin of injury. Like, you need luck, and every title team needs luck. And this Tennessee starting 5 on the offensive line, when they're all ready, it's one of the best in the SEC, but they've got to be healthy. And I still I don't know how healthy they're going to be for the rest of this year. What say you, Jack?
Yeah, for this year tackle spot, I'll say 7. Just because the Lance Hurd thing seems weird. And, surprise not playing. He's got to play against Arkansas. Going to need him for these big games down the stretch. And I don't know. You saw the impact it had against Oklahoma. A better offense is going to make Tennessee pay. I know Tennessee's defense is so great, but a better offense will make you pay for those mistakes and not force turnovers literally on the next play twice or whatever it was, second play, next set of downs.
First play both times.
First play both times? Okay. I didn't know if the fumble was the first play. I knew the lateral was. Anyway, so I'll say 7 just because John Campbell, durability, Lance Hurd, what's going on. Dane Davis not looking good. It's Oklahoma. 7 out of 10 for me.
7 out of 10. What say you, Ryan?
On the scale of, trying to make a deep run in the playoff and win a national championship, I'll say 8. It just feels like it's going to be the bugaboo for this team, and it's going to limit some of the stuff they can do in the pass game. I think Jack hit the nail on the head with, why it's a big deal or the concerns and recapped it all well. But to me, it just feels like an issue that's going to continue to come up. I will say one thing in their defense to what you said, Chase. If they got Jordan Seaton, they wouldn't have gotten Lance Hurd.
That's true.
They'd still have the same issue. Now, maybe
Jordan Seaton's played every game, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah,
he had a good game.
Maybe
this
he'd
week,
be more healthy than Lance Hurd. Certainly possible. But it's not like you would just have the 5-star freshman sitting there waiting to come in. They would have still had the same issues. So
the bigger issue is you haven't developed anybody behind him or behind her for the last 3 years. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, is there a single upperclassman offensive tackle on this roster that they signed out of high school and have developed? I don't think there is. Or a 3-year guy. That's the issue. That the first 2 full classes under Heupel were very bad on the offensive line from a recruiting standpoint.
And that's the thing, Ethan, right? It just depends on how you view the season. If we're all collectively saying this team has the talent and I think they have the defense to make the national title, it changes how you view the offensive line situation, because I think LRB they've gone through Gerald Mincey, J.J. Crawford. You had J.J. Crawford playing important snaps in the left tackle spot against Alabama, and he had the most iconic moment of the game with his throw, just throwing up, staring down Alabama and shaking his head. Yes, that Tennessee has been able to put Band-Aids on the tackle spot and been okay. The problem I think we haven't seen before is Darnell Wright was still the healthy all year long. This is a different scenario where both tackle spots, I think now you have to worry who's going to be available week over week. I think you're at a spot where do you feel good over a long playoff run that you're going to have both of these guys every single one of these games, or it's going to be kind of you might get them this game, you might not, or it's just going to be some load management, or they can have this X amount of snaps, or just going in. I just think it's going to be uncertain the rest of the way. I think fans have to get okay with that. I don't see this going away. I don't see this problem this season going away.
Yeah, you get to the playoff, you face a team like Ohio State, and you're down one of the two. That spells trouble. On Tennessee's regular season schedule, I'd go out on a limb and say Oklahoma's defensive line was probably the best that they're going to face. Georgia's a little down. They haven't played SEC competition, legitimate SEC competition anyway, so it's kind of hard to say much about that. Bama's in the same boat. We're just now entering SEC play, so it's hard to definitively say that that's going to be the best defensive line. It's absolutely top 3. And I think there's a very real chance it could be the best. And Tennessee still fared pretty well. I'm not going to use that as an excuse to say that I'm just perfectly fine with it. I'd agree with everything Jack and Ryan said. You get to a point where you run into the Ohio States, you run into, I don't know, Michigan has a good defensive line. I don't think they're going to make the playoff, but you know what I'm talking about. Those types of teams, that absolutely spells trouble if these guys can't stay healthy the entire season.
All right, Chase, as a true through and through bleed orange Tennessee fan, what is your confidence level Tennessee beats Arkansas? Scale of, let's make the scale bigger. Scale 1 to 20.
19.
19. Okay, so barring a complete collapse, Tennessee's winning that game in Fayetteville.
Yeah.
All right. You should want Tennessee to be behind early. You should want Arkansas to take maybe even a 10-0 lead. Because I want to see what this Tennessee offense looks like when they're behind, and they're having.
I don't want it
just
on
a
the road
tad
in
bit
Arkansas
of catch up
at all,
and just a little bit behind schedule. Whatever game it is, but
give me at home. I'd feel better if they get in a hole at home. I don't want it on the road in Fayetteville.
This offense have to pass the ball, need to pass the ball before a big game, like a Georgia or Bama, because it's been so easy for Nico pretty much. With these game scripts and not having to do much. And I just want to see what it looks like. The tackle struggles, the receiver uncertainty, some of us higher on the group than others. I don't know. Something I'd be curious to see how that looks if Tennessee allows some early touchdown. Maybe it's a big return, short field. Who knows? but just what does it look like?
Even on their scripted drive, on their first drive, like Arkansas's first drive, they score 7-0.
Yeah, exactly. It
This hits
happens
the ball
early.
back and
That's
wins
what I want to see.
48-7.
Yeah.
I think it's still gonna. The thing is, like, I just think this team has so much swagger because of what they know this defense is, right? I think the offense isn't gonna panic because they're like, defense is.
I don't either,
Like, we
but
don't
I
have to get it
wanna
all
see
back right at once. Like, I just don't think they're gonna press, and I think the 2022 team had to press because they're like, I don't know when we're gonna get another stop. I don't know what this defense. Like, we have to keep scoring. Like, they were looking at the South Carolina game. We have to keep scoring. Like, I don't know if there's a stop coming against Alabama. Like, I don't know when the next stop is coming. I think this team doesn't have to press like that. So I guess I'm less interested in that element this year just because no one's dropping 35, 40 on this defense. Like, I don't think that's happening.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. I still have a little bit of worry with how explosive this offense can be.
I just don't think it's coming. Maybe I'm wrong. I think with the offensive line stuff, how good they are running the football, I don't think you're going to see the explosion that people are waiting for.
That's why Nico's not going to New York.
I don't know. The narrative's just too strong. Like, if they're
You're
undefeated,
contradicting yourself here.
No, I'm saying the narrative, like, but what we've seen watching every snap of Nico, I think is different than what other people have seen from Nico because he's still having some wild throws. His numbers are still strong, and if they are undefeated,
His numbers aren't
everyone looks at
strong.
the
His numbers
Yeah.
are not. They are not.
I
Heisman.
wasn't-
They are not
Yeah.
in New York as a Heisman candidate.
I mean, his
strong.
yards per attempt is
Absolutely
still
not.
what, 10? His yards
No
per
one
attempt is
looks
still
at yards per attempt when they're talking about Heisman. They look at how many yards you're throwing for per game, and he's throwing like 215 right now, which we know that's not the whole story. But when it comes
he's averaging
to
10 yards per
getting to
attempt.
New York,
Yeah, okay, right there with Quinn Ewers.
I personally think if Nico keeps this pace and Tennessee goes 12-0, he'll be in the Heisman.
That's what I'm saying. Like,
12-0 maybe. Tennessee, I don't think.
I think even
don't
11-1,
think
he's a
Tennessee's gonna
finalist. I think people
Well,
are
it
going to look
depends
to
on
Nico.
I think it depends on what Ole Miss does because Dart is piling up the numbers right now,
He is.
and I think they're going to give Travis Hunter an invite.
He has to be.
won't
Travis
win.
Hunter is the favorite. He should be the
He won't
favorite.
win.
Travis Hunter is the best player in college football this year.
He won't win, but I think he gets an invite just because of that, and he should win probably. And
Yeah.
Cam Ward lighting it up. So
Cam Ward's
there's
right there,
I will
too.
say,
other guys.
one thing about Nico and the explosive plays, I mean, probably his two best plays in two meaningful games both got called back. The long touchdown
True.
to Miles Kitselman against NC State and the ball he threw to Dante Thornton on the run. Like, that was really, really nice. And I didn't think Andrej Carrick held on to play. Maybe somebody else, and they just called it on the wrong guy. Yeah, it was a
Both
very,
were bad
very
calls
soft
if you look
holding
back
call.
because there was the Dane Davis downfield.
Yeah, but Cooper was downfield. I think they got
Uh,
the wrong guy on that one. Dane was not downfield, but Cooper was downfield.
So
on that
Cooper
one.
actually was. So it wasn't a bad penalty.
Yes. I think they just got the guy wrong. Cooper was like 8 yards downfield. But yeah, all that to say, I think they can find some explosive plays with stuff off script and Nico. I mean, that's what we talked about a lot this offseason, that one of the things we're most excited about him is what he could do off script. And while the plays haven't counted, he's made 2 exceptional plays there into Tennessee's 2 games against Power 4 opponents.
Ethan Stone, what can the folks check out from you over at Saturday on South this week?
Yeah, it's the typical stuff coming up to a good week. Obviously, we got Georgia and Alabama. That's going to be a fantastic game. The month of October, obviously, is just going to be elite with the new teams and their new conferences. We'll have full coverage of that. Big Ten, SEC, ACC over on SDS.
I love it. What about you, Ryan Schumpert, over at Rocky Top Insider?
Yeah, tons of Tennessee football stuff this week. And then also Tennessee basketball. First official day of practice tomorrow. So we'll have practice open to the media. We'll be over there. We'll have coverage and a lot of the normal stuff on Tennessee sports.
I love it. Jack, what about you over there at Omaha Productions?
Yeah, same as usual. Got NFL recaps for the Mina Kimes Show and SV Pod on Tuesdays. NFL preview for Mina Kimes on Thursday. College football recap on late Saturday nights, early Sunday mornings for SVP. And then 4 shows a week now for Always College Football. Got David Pollock on the show this week to preview Georgia-Bama. So that should be fun. And just keep it rolling along. Lots of episodes over at Omaha Audio each week. So lots of content to get your hands on.
What's your Omaha? Can you do it? Do you have to practice?
I don't want to peek on the mic, but I think I can do a pretty good one.
Okay. I feel like it's part of it. I'll be practicing, but I'm not going to do it on the mic.
Do it. If you do it, I'll do it.
All right. Omaha!
Omaha!
Oh, that was better. You got the
That was
ah.
Jackson.
Like, you
That
got to
was
really.
good.
That was pretty
That
good.
That's impressive.
Yeah, you got to have that. I don't have that in my voice. We
That
just
was a
like
good ha.
someone just
That
drove
was
off the
good.
road, just me shouting Omaha like that. We apologize here on the program, but we had to do it. Ryan Schumpert, Ethan Stone, Jack Foster, always a pleasure, and I will talk to y'all next week.
Nicely done, nephew. The Chase Thomas Podcast. Hell yeah.